sorry, we had some disturbance in the classwork, and probably I had to send to asynchronous mode recordings. But I think we will, from now onwards, we'll have regular things without missing. We have lost some time. We got to make up for those 2 or 3 classes that we missed. Particularly those doesn't here. Now, in the last class, we have been talking about in the last class, we have been talking about the 4 P's of marketing, particularly the product, price, place, and promotion. Do you have any questions on that? I'm not too sure that all of you had gone through. I had certain difficulties in recording. I had to do it twice. Are there any questions on the 4 P's of marketing? Am I audible, Sarthak?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Yeah. Are there any questions for me? Topic that we have done?
No, sir.
So should I take it that there are no questions on this? Today, I wish to take you through something called the product life cycle. And we have some more tools to discuss at the end, which I leave it to the end of this particular unit. But before we go into those tools, let me make you aware of the product life cycle. Before we go into the product life cycle, we have seen the 4 P's of marketing. I was also mentioning that there are several facets of marketing which are listed. Some of them are listed here, and things have been changing. And as we were discussing about the marketing process, we said it's a process consisting of 5 different stages. The first one being the marketing analysis, then making the marketing strategy, then coming up with an integrated marketing program, which we called the marketing mix, or the 4 P's that we just discussed. Okay, and we got to implement and control this. Once the product is launched, the firm is required to monitor this and make adjustments for all the feedback that it receives. Okay, so the variation in the product mix the marketing mix would also be necessary at this particular stage after launch. And then we are, of course, interested in knowing how we perform. So we try to gather information back from the market about the various measures that we probably are interested about, how well the product is doing, whether there are difficulties with the product, whether there is any inconvenience caused, and the performance of the product and the performance of our own distribution channels, and the satisfaction that the customers have been able to understand. Before I get into, I was also mentioning that marketing mix, though we have limited ourselves to the 4 P's, there are more than this that normally are discussed. Usually the mix is a strategic distribution, and which is required to be adopted appropriately depending upon the level of activity and the level of competition and the type of environment in which we are. And therefore, we have to ensure that the target audience is satisfied, value perception is accurate, and we are able to match the strategies of our competitors so that our objectives are met. Therefore, this is the basic purpose of marketing, as we have been saying. Coming next, I was the extended marketing mix. Say, for example, I'm just giving you a glance of this. It is 7 P's, wherein to the product, price, place, and promotion, we are adding 3 more P's, which are people, process, and physical environment. The people, in the sense, it is not just the customers that we address, it is also the people who address these customers. That means to say, our own sales force, our own employees of the organization who get in contact with the servicing of the requirements of the clientele and the stakeholders. Each one of them are important. Each one of them is important for the satisfaction generation. And in that sense, everyone that is involved with the marketing and sales process are included in the people. So the training of them, the recruitment, selection, training, and keeping them happy to perform, to have that sort of a belongingness for the job and for the organization is most essential. So how we motivate them, how we take them with us with the and harmonizing the goals of the organization, harmonizing the individual goals with the goals of the organization is what we mean here. So we want our employees to be effective and to be perceived as positive by the customers. So this is the fifth P that we are talking about. Next P is the process. The methods and procedures that we follow in satisfying or in taking the product to the customer, to the market, to the stakeholders is also very important. That means to say, how do we service the requirements of the clientele and the customers is also of equal importance. Therefore, the arrangements that are made, the type of inventories that we maintain, and the packaging, the type of arrangements for payments, and the negotiations, the training, and installation, after sales service, everything comes in this particular part. So we have to check our procedures, processes very frequently so that we are able to make them easy, simple, accessible, and user friendly. Okay, and which naturally reflects on the income of the organization. Sorry, this step may come with certain trial and errors at times for where we have not much of experience. This has to be done. Then the physical environment. The physical environment is to make the customer feel happy, confident, and have trust in the product and the process of the organization that they are uh, coming to. In that particular sense, the showrooms, the retail outlets that we provide, the ambience that we create, all this creates certain value and certain levels of confidence about the ability to service their requirements. Therefore, the physical environment is very, very essential. And also the experiences that they have, you know, in ease of service, reliability, durability of the product, and the functionality. All this. So people, even if it is a service, it is said that they wish to receive something tangible. So even if you're giving a receipt sort of a thing, that itself is some confidence for them that this would guarantee the performance of the agreement. Okay. So in that particular sense, we wish to create such confidence, which creates value for the customer, value for the organization. So that initiates the transactions and future businesses. So the key implication of such sort of extended marketing mix is that all these P's, whatever may be the number 4 or 7 or 9, whatever it is, we wish that we are focusing more closely on the parameters and factors that seem to be of vital importance to the customer and to the market for the product that we are dealing with. In that particular sense, we try to specialize on each of those parameters and see that we do not miss on any of them that makes us lose the benefits of the value creation and satisfaction, generating satisfaction. Okay. So in that particular sense, importance of marketing mix. It provides valuable guide for resource allocation. We understand what is it that we are planning. In that context, we would be able to plan our activities and allocate resources appropriately. And there are also scarcity of resources. Therefore, we have to be judicious in the way we probably distribute our allocations. And it allocates responsibilities. So people would know what they need to do, what is expected of them. And therefore, there is some sort of a teamwork that is possible, the spirit of working together and understanding each one's role in meeting the objectives, the common goal. It means the responsibilities are allocated to all the members. And communication is clear, not only within the firm, but also external with the customers, with the stakeholders, with the distribution channels. And probably the likelihood of the goal being achieved is much, much better. So it all leads to profit maximization in this context and also satisfaction and building partnership with all those who are involved. Finally, it's the customer satisfaction that deals with this. Yeah. You see the last box here. First few questions we have already considered. The people component, we are trying to add the fifth P. How do customers react to your product, price, quality, and service and the brand? Who are your most profitable customers? What are the attributes that define them as a group? And do you deliver guarantee customer satisfaction? Well, before I go into the product life cycle, like every one of us, every living thing, we all have some life period. Every creature has some life period. So will the products have. For example, some of the products that we have come across, like the Coca-Cola, Coke, or Horlicks, or Budweiser, and Surf, and other products like this, had been in the market for more than 75 years, almost for a century now, and they are still going strong. Okay, so but there are also some products we have just come into the market yesterday, and they are no more today. In that particular sense, there are products which come, they survive, sustain, and they go on. In that particular sense, the period of life of each of these products is not ensured. It need not be the same. And the length of life cycle may be varying depending upon the strategies that we follow, the type of products, the type of environment in which it is working, the various, we have been talking about the macro environment, the technology, changes in technology, changes in materials, changes in the lifestyles, changes in competition. All these things definitely affect the longevity of a particular product in the market as it is. So the product life cycle, it happens to be one of the important concept of marketing. And we probably would like to create certain arbitrary stages or phases of this life cycle so that we would be able to analyze the products based on the sales that we achieve over the period of the product's life in the market as it is. Before I go into this, can I ask you all a question? Have you seen a product which has got a very short life cycle? What is, can somebody name a type of product which has a very short life cycle and a product portfolio, probably that continues sort of a thing? Can somebody think
Sir,
of it?
sir,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
life cycle in the time when it is demand or the time it can use.
Finding it difficult. I'm not able to get you. Can you say it again?
No, sir. Actually, life cycle means normally in general terms, amount of time which you can use that. For example, like a pen like for 20 pages you can write is life cycle. Or telling demand like it has been popular at this point of time only.
One moment. Let me move to a better place. Yeah. Can you say that again?
Sure, sir. Life cycle means you mean time which we can use that amount of time or amount of time during which it was popular or in demand.
Yeah. The amount of time where a product existed in the market. From the time it was
Yeah. Okay,
launched,
sir. Okay.
it continues to live on. Yeah. Can somebody name one item that you have seen which has a very short term? Say, for example, you have all known, I think Landmaster was a company which gave technology to two different companies, one in Japan, one in India. The Indian company was Hindustan Motors, the other one was Nissan. Both got the technology from the same parent company. But you know what happened? Now Nissan has operations in India and Hindustan Motors is in trouble waters. The ambassador, there was no development in this. So the product that was being launched by this ambassador survived for few decades. But after that, we don't see it today in the market. We hear that it is being relaunched sometime later. Okay, that is one. Similarly, we have heard of there used to be a type of moped called Suvega that was very popular in the earlier times. That was manufactured. I think that was one of the first few mopeds like Suvega, Luna. They were all there. But today you don't hear of Suvega, which was being made in Tirupati. Okay, and we only hear of TVS Cham and probably some other brands, but we don't hear of these mopeds, some of them. You also know about Dalda. Okay, Dalda was very a premium item for making food items at home. Whenever they made savories, Dalda was being used earlier. Today, for various reasons, it is almost abundant. Okay, so this is how it was going on. And do you remember? Are you aware of a product called pager? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Used to have it.
Yes. Before we had the mobile phones, pagers were launched in India. And that was a communication system which was messaging, but not directly by the customer, and it was through a particular channel. And it was expensive. Not only that, it was only, a text messaging sort of a thing. Only text messaging was possible. No talking facility. So whenever you receive a message, you go to the nearest landline. You were calling up people. So that was the type of activity that was going on. And some of the companies which took license from the Indian government in anticipation of a bigger market for their own products and service had done so. But unfortunately, there was a change in the trend in the communication systems. The mobile phones came in, and the pages had a very short life. It was short lived. Okay. So the technology, trends in technology, has also put a particular sector of industry or a particular type of products into abeyance. It has thrown it out of the market. So pagers are no more used. Now, whatever pager was being used for is a part of the mobile phones that we are using. We are able to text the messages as simple, very simple by our own self to whomever we want, in addition to the communication through talking facility that we have, in addition to many other things. So these are some of the things. But what I am asking is, are you aware of any other product which you have seen, which has a very short life? Okay, without losing time, let me tell you
Stylus.
what. Yeah, say it again.
Stylus, sir.
Okay,
Stylus. I mean,
Silas is,
uh,
yeah, good.
at the starting of tablets, it used to be very
Yeah,
famous, but
yeah,
later on, they stopped buying them. They
yes.
used to be ridiculously expensive also. Like
Expensive also.
one
Yes, you're
was
right.
3,000 in the initial days. Now there are like no one is selling that also.
It's not, the prices have not come down much, but we still require, for example, for the online teaching, all of us brought the stylus. Okay. So, in order to be able to write on the screen. So, it's still in usage, not thrown out like the pages. But one thing
Wired
which,
earphones.
yeah,
Wired earphones.
yeah, wired earphones. Okay. Good. There are some products like this which are going out of the market for reasons known, for reasons which are not just the trend of technology, but because of various other reasons. One thing is, do you realize that there is a product which is born in the mid of the in the in midnight and dies out during afternoon, almost during afternoon?
Some movie maybe.
No, no. It is again reborn
The
in the midnight.
newspapers.
Newspapers, yes. So it has value on the stands only till afternoon, right? Once it is noon, probably the news becomes stale. So the marketing strategy that is required to sell such a product is also so very different. The product is the same, the product continues, but this version of the product has no life. You understand? So there are things which are so very different, and it depends on so many other factors that we have to think about. So, having understood what we mean by product life cycle, what we are talking about, like each one of us have our own life cycles. No, we try to divide this into 4 or 5 phases. As I have stated here, the 4 phases that I am trying to show here is introduction, that is where we try to launch the product, initiate the product into the releasing the product into the market. Then once it is released, it takes off. It it has to survive for a while to gain the confidence of at least a few people, and then it picks up. So the rate of growth is much higher, or the rate of sales is much faster during a next phase that is called the growth phase. After some time, the growth rate falls and it almost saturates, and that is called a maturity. That means to say the growth rate is slowing down, where there are other factors that are also coming in. Probably when I have introduced, my product is unique. It is an innovative, unique product that I have researched, I have introduced, I have designed, and I have launched. During the growth phase, people have their own inhibitions. Probably they have been able to see the benefits out of the product, and it has increased after introduction during the growth phase. Having seen such sort of a growth and the profit possibilities here, opportunity, there are competitors who have started imitating or coming up with similar products. Therefore, there is competition happening. And when the competition takes part into selling the similar sort of benefits or products, naturally my own market saturates. And we reach such saturation, the strategies at each of these stages are going to be different. And we also realize at some stage or the other, the life of the product is likely to come down. That means the sales are not going to be as high as it was before, and it would start drooping. In that particular sense, once it starts falling, it is in the decline phase. But not necessarily all products have such a declining phase. We can also try to take off from the maturity level, just like how the introduction has come up. At the time of introduction, what we have done, similar sort of activity can also come up during the end of maturity phase, where the cycle repeats. That means to say a higher level of performance is anticipated by bringing in new features, new designs, new methods, and something that is new, which is much more satisfying to the customers and the market, and more trendy in that sense. In addition to all this, before the introduction phase, we also can have something called a development phase. That means to say, I need to come up, when you see the curve here, the product development is in the negative. In the fourth quadrant, you see, this is a chart being drawn on the sales or the volume of products to that of time. Okay. And the first dotted line from the origin shows the product development. This is a phase where we are trying to come up with new product development or developing our own services and new products as such. So in this context, we have made some research, we have identified the needs and wants of the customers, and now having seen that there exists an opportunity to satisfy some of these needs, we have started prototyping our product, then trying to test it whether it is able to satisfy, and come up with a full-fledged product. Once we have tested and we see that it is commercially ready for launching, we have launched the product. That is the introduction phase. The second dotted line between the first dotted line and the second dotted line is the introduction part, where for large part of time in this particular phase, the costs seem to be still higher. As you have seen in the first phase, the line is still at the bottom of the axis, right? So all these are the development investment that we have made in making this product come through. And after this, it still continues
Advertising.
in, yeah, advertising, creating awareness. So the initial level of creating awareness, making people aware that such a problem or can be solved by this particular solution being offered by our company, sort of a thing. So there is a high level of investment that is required during the initial phase of launching of a particular product, not only for advertising, but nobody is ready to come up as your distribution channel, the channels of distribution. No retailer is ready to take. I'm coming with a new mobile phone. when there is Apple, when there is Samsung, when there are several other phones being marketed, who would look at me for my cell phone to be sold? Okay, even if they are prepared, they would ask me for a higher levels of discounts or margins for their own self. So it will be very difficult for me to come up with such sort of. So my distribution channels would initially be very selective. I wish to see that my objective of creating awareness is satisfied also by a successful partnering with such sort of vendors who would create such confidence with the customers. Therefore, creating such channels and training them and creating such possibilities and facilitating them to create such ambience for the products that are to be sold, it also costs the organization. Therefore, the expenditure is still in the loss side. So if we say that below the x-axis, if you consider this as loss, above this x-axis is shown as profit. Okay. So almost at the end of the introduction stage, we just started making little profits. That means to say our revenues are little more than the expenses that we have been incurring for selling these items or doing this sort of a business. Though you see the upper curve, which is the sales curve is always positive. From the time we have launched, before launching, it is zero. We started from zero. So it is a positive curve which is picking up. And as I was mentioning, during the growth phase, you see the slope of this particular sales curve is much steeper. That means the rate of growth is much, much higher. So the strategy could be so very different. During the initial phase, when I have made my product, I have invested some money. Some of the type products, depending upon the type, might require a huge investment in the development process. So many companies would also try to make money in the first instance. So the pricing of the product usually could be that they are very expensive during the launch phase, which would probably come down after a little while. And that little while is when competitors come up with similar features for their products as well. So when the competition is picking up, I wish to bring down my price. So when I say I am trying to sell at a very high price that is possible, the maximum price that is possible, that is called skimming the market. That means I wish skimming is something, making, what do you call that? What is skimming? Is somebody there on the line? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So skimming is something, you like you get butter out of your buttermilk when I churn it. So that's the way.
Reduce.
So yeah, I try to make the best use of time and I make money at the initial. So the initial investments that I have made are recouped at the first phase before competition comes in. There could be another strategy. That is called the penetrating strategy. Penetrating strategy is a strategy where the opportunity, though is being good, I would not permit others to enter into this market by offering my product at a very lower price. Okay. So that the investment in the resources that are required to come up with such sort of product being high, other operators might feel risky to come up to challenge this particular product because I had an edge of developing a product. So all these development activities would normally be very secretive. Okay, these are all intellectual properties. Therefore, even the employees of the organization are made to sign the intellectual property rules and forms, sort of a thing, so that they would not share any aspect with anybody, even with the family members. That's the sort of a thing. Okay. Having said this, now what I'm trying to say about the pricing is not that every time we come with skimming pricing or penetrating sort of pricing strategy. But during the course of time, we are likely to come up with changes in this sort of a thing. Added to this, it is not just pricing, you should realize. In the growth phase, what I have done is I have probably increased my channels of distribution. Now I have been increasing my channels of distribution as well, making the product available at more geographical locations and by through various vendors, through various, you know, probably I have a warehouse, I have a stockist, a distributor, a several retailers, and service stations established all across. So that's the sort of a thing. Therefore, along with growth, my channels of distribution have grown. Now you see, during the maturity phase, it has peaked. My sales have peaked during this particular point, and a little later, it has started coming down. It has started coming down. And my profits, as you see, have almost stagnated during the beginning of maturity or during the maturity phase. That's when my competitors have picked up. So now my market share is important for me. So I have a different strategy now. I try to encourage my customers to switch from my competitors to that of mine. So I come with such sort of marketing strategies which help in switching customers. And this is also a phase, some of them who are not able to sustain such sort of a decline in profits would wind up. So amalgamations take place. So I take over another organization of the same business and so on and so forth. So these are some of the strategies that come in. And finally, it comes down to a declining phase. But once we have realized that the sales or the profits are declining, the organization can also evidently make efforts to revitalize the product and create such avenues to increase the benefits. So the integrated, the product life cycles are becoming shorter and shorter as products in mature stages are being renewed by market segmentation and product differentiation. So more and more market segmentation is now necessary. Product differentiation is also necessary so that we are assured of our clientele, our customers, and our product features that satisfy that particular need. Okay, the product life cycle is associated with the segmentation, marketing, target marketing, product differentiation and positioning, and of course the product mix, which is the decision tool for us. Any questions so far?
Sir, for
Yeah.
hello.
Hello. Yes, please. Go ahead.
Sir, for penetrating, the initial slope will be smaller, but for long time, no, sir?
What do you mean? The slope positive?
Yeah, positive only, but the slope will be smaller but longer.
Yes.
Like in
It
the
will go on for a longer period. For example, we have shown here a hypothetical dotted lines here. Nowhere we have said that this is for 1 year. This is not to scale. Okay, this picture is not to scale.
no, sir. I mean,
So
compared to skimming,
yeah,
the penetrating
you're
will
right.
will be for longer time, no, sir.
For longer time. For longer time. Once we understand the consumer behavior, then the strategies will become little more different. Okay, we'll come to that.
Okay,
Okay,
Sir,
I'll take you there. Yeah,
sir,
please.
can you give an example of any great product which had a smaller life cycle?
Which had a
Smaller life cycle, sir. Small life cycle.
small life
Great,
cycle.
great product having a small life cycle.
Yeah, I was mentioning, considering the products that we had, Ambassador car was a good example. When I am trying to compare, trying to compare two organizations. What is the objective of a company or an organization? At one point of time, probably Ambassador had no competition in this market, right? except for the Fiat that existed. There were only 2 cars in Indian market. But the source of technology was from one particular company. It is not only for the Indian company, but it also was given to the Japanese company. But the rate of growth of that particular organization, Nissan, has grown to a level where it is ready to offer technology to India today. Why today? 2 decades back. Alvin Nissan was the first one that came up with Nissan. Okay. So, but Ambassador was always struggling. So that is one point. The second thing that I am trying to talk to you about, there was a company which had a very difficult time. Have you heard of the car by name Reva?
No, sir.
Hello. Yeah, this car was an electric car, which came up. It's a it can accommodate 2 individuals. Okay, it's a very small car, and it's an electric car, which was made by NRI, and he was promised all such sort of subsidies and incentives by the Indian government. But once he has established, came up with his product, there was no incentives extended to him. So the car was costing almost 2 lakh rupees when it was made. And for the Indian market, where Maruti was being sold at that time, probably 1.5 lakh sort of a thing, 2 lakhs is too high. And nobody bothered about the environmental considerations or the fossil fuels, depletion of fossil fuels. Everybody thought everything will be running as smooth, and the people are still buying. Even today, people are still buying petrol and other cars compared to this. But today, this car, Reva, is taken over by a different company, and now it has got the subsidies given for the customers, okay, for buying an electric vehicle. So the life of this particular, the entrepreneur had to sell away his ideas, okay. So sometimes we say that we are too early in the market, right? So timing is very, very important for every activity, every action, every decision that we make. So at times, it's, Charles Babbage was much ahead of his times in making that mechanical computer, whatever he has done. So in that sense, and people never knew the usage and the utility of that particular activity. So coming to consumer behavior, I'm not going to deal much with the consumer behavior, but I wish to highlight 1 or 2 points here. What we mean is, how do the consumers search, purchase, use, evaluate, and finally get rid of the products and services, and what will satisfy, and what do they expect, and how will they satisfy their needs, is the question that the organizations are more bothered with. So trying to understand these individuals and how they make their decisions, and spending their time, money, and effort in buying all these items is what marketeers are all interested. So when I buy one particular product, do I buy something else? When I take my family out for a lunch or a dinner, probably that's the time I also offer them an ice cream. So you can see what are all, the locations of some of those items so related, being accessible very easily. So that's how many of the decisions of the marketing are made. So study of what they buy, why they buy, when they buy, where they buy it, and how often they buy it, and how often they use it are the questions that we are all interested in to understand the market, our own segments of market. So study of the processes by which consumers make decisions. More specifically, it is concerned with how consumers acquire, organize, and use information to make consumption choice. This is what is the consumer behavior. Now, let me tell you that amongst the consumers, if I consider the consumers as a bell curve, a part of the bell curve, I again have 5 different categories of people available to me. The first one, which is only about 2.5% of people, are known as innovators. The second set of people are called early adopters, who are 13.5%. And the early majority is 34%, and the late majority is again 34%. That's a great majority. Early and late majority put together is about 68%. And the laggards are 16%. Innovators are the first customers who try out a new product. They are educated, they are young, they are not brand loyal. They try out everything that comes in and they take risk without knowing much about the performance of the product. They do not hesitate to buy such things. They will be the first to experiment and try all products that are released into the market. The next set of people, who are the early adapters, they are the most important part. Innovators and early adapters. More than the innovators, early adapters are actually the most important people, because these are the people who are brand ambassadors. In the sense, they are the people who, uh, by word of mouth,
Brand loyal.
yeah,
They are brand loyal people. Like
they
they
are
will
brand,
turn into brand loyal people.
yeah, they turn out to be, for example, when you're buying something which you have not bought before or you're not sure about, when you go to Flipkart or Amazon or similar sort of online, we are facilitated to see the reviews on the product, right? So what is good, what is not good, and how good it is, and what concept or what aspects it is good, what it is not. So it helps us in making a decision for the purpose that we are trying to buy a particular item. So these are reviewers, they are brand ambassadors in that particular sense. The word of mouth is very important. No, these are also very similar to the innovators in the sense, though they are not so risky in nature as the innovators, they wait and check. And then after having checked in they wish to see the product, and probably check them at the first instance and give a review of various items. They are more aware of the products that they buy. Okay. So they are technically much more sound, or they are aware of the products or the needs in very specific nature. And the early majority are those, based on the reviews that have come, these are people with our average income sort of a thing. They it's the by the reviews that they have received. So the advertisements, the promotion, that everything comes up. So these people take that particular route. So this is early majority. And the late majority, as we have mentioned, they are skeptical about product adoption. They tend to put their resources towards tried and tested solutions. Whatever they have tried, their confidence, they go. They are loyal people for a particular brand, even if it is. So they are risk aversive in that sense. Laggards are those who do not change, and unless it is imposed on them for a change, a particular product is no more available, then only they come up. Or when there are higher discounts being offered, that's the time these laggards change to a newer product. So this is the type of people, set of people that are available in the market. So we have to be aware of which segment of the segment that we are trying to attack. What percentage of people do we have of each of this nature is important. Coming to the first phase of the product life cycle, I wish to touch upon some aspects of the product development. If we are to come up, we have identified some unsatisfied need in the market. We probably think that this could be a good idea, a spin-off, a startup for us. So we are trying to come up with a product or a service in that sense. So we gather, we make a survey, we make a research and gather information about the market, and then about the competitors who is existing, about the features of their product, and what are the customers not happy with in the present day market and present day products, and what is it that we could jump into or try to satisfy that particular need. So from that's the idea generation. Then we come up with screening, then concept development, then marketing strategies, business analysis, product development, test marketing, and finally commercialization. So this is the normal process which is suggested because time is a great resource here. So whenever we are getting into such sort of activity, we also have to keep in mind that time is a major resource. Opportunities are bound within time limits. So we have to cash upon the opportunity at the earliest possible. So, and creating teams in order to be able to address each of these phases is very important. Your strategy to develop these products, it's probably we have to, many a times we do not understand the market properly, or we are over ambitious, overestimating things, and we are in the rush to release half finished products which will not add value, more than that which will lose image for the organization, or it doesn't meet anybody's requirements, and the pricing of the products we don't understand, and then we spend resources more than what we have budgeted or thought of, planned for. Okay, in that sense, no management is existing. So it's a bad management, exposing your business to risks and threats from unexpected competition. You're unaware of the trends that are taking place and the likelihood of the licenses or others who are entering into the field. And there are several important steps that we need to plan into product development strategy. Firstly, identifying market needs. What is the target market for the product proposed? And what does the market need? What is the benefit for the proposed new product? And what are the market's frustrations of existing products and its type? How will it fit into the current market? And what sets this product apart from its competitions? How is it different? What differentiation are we coming up? And based on this marketing research, we may have to conduct further research on this and much more focused research on this. And the usual process is generating and screening ideas, developing and screening these concepts, testing concepts, analyzing markets, developing and market testing, and finally commercializing. When we are trying to develop ideas, we have a set of criteria based on which we try to evaluate our ideas. And this probably should have what are all the major customer needs identified, and what are all those improvements that we are planning to include into the new product, and what benefits are we trying to add to the market. And finally, whether it is really possible to come up with such sort of aspects or features for the product, and how profitable would it be, and at what range of price then we offer these additional benefits that we are trying to come up with. And even if we are able to do this, is this idea marketable? And would this fit into our business profile? And we have to conduct a SWOT analysis again and try to see what the threats are, and in comparison with the opportunities that we have tried to see. It is said that for every 7 products that we are trying to develop, one at least will become successful. So, we start with hundreds of ideas, and it's a funnel technology where we have several of them at the beginning. We narrow down to a handful of ideas. And based on these ideas, again, we have certain benchmark targeted specs that we have conceptualized for the product that we are trying to develop. And in relation to those, probably we have to come up with features that the current competitors have been able to offer and at what stage they are. So we come up with certain other charts like Pareto charts and so on and so forth on each of the features, and importance of these features is to be evaluated. Finally, we decide what are all those factors, what are the implications with respect to the investments that are required, and the whether we are resourceful to that extent to invest on such sort of, whether it is within our reach for such sort of development to take place or not, and whether already such patents exist, whether there would be any violation of patents or somebody as whether we have patented our own idea is also to be checked. Or else, the competition comes in even before you launch your product. So when we come to the business analysis, we try to, estimate everything with what it involves, like the investments, like the prices that we are likely to come up with for the products, the market potential, the sales volume, the break-even analysis, and finally determine at what minimum price can we sell to see whether it is feasible to sell a product of this nature and whether it is appropriate idea, and whether there are certain unnecessary costs. And after having done this, we go up with developing the concepts. Out of the concepts, you do a lot of sketching and other exercises, brainstorming. There are several techniques of scamper sort of techniques that are used to identify different concepts. And of these concepts, we those such of those concepts which probably weigh on certain parameters and features or specifications of the product that we are interested in to bring into the market are chosen at the initial step, and we make a prototype for this and give it to a focused group. A focused group is one where people have a lot of experience of using such sort of products. Say, for example, if you are coming up with a grinder or a mixer sort of a thing, a housewife, a chef sort of people are the best people to test out such sort of a product. Similarly, if you are coming up with some power tools, workshop tools, then probably a mechanic, a service mechanic, or a sort of engineer would be a better person to check on the serviceability of this, whether it is able to serve the purpose for which you have come up with such an idea. So, having done this, now we come up with a proper marketing campaign plan, advertising plan, communication material, and public media relationship, and the strategy of tinkles and advertisements being released, and also a sales plan, so that you have a production plan available, and then a pricing strategy, and the availability of distributors and the ready accessibility of them and acceptance from them. So the plan has to be shared with all of them along with the customers to release, so that the opportunities are not lost. These are some of the things we have: concept, research, analysis, development, finally launch. At every stage, you have a possibility of a decision of a go or no go sort of a situation. So for every concept, you can say no, where it doesn't satisfy the objectives of with which we have started. If it doesn't satisfy, it's a no go sort of a thing. Or else it goes through this point till we could come up with. So some of these things, I think we can discuss the stages of PLC and some of the growth strategies as such. This I have already discuss some of these strategies. Now, product. Should we continue or can we have it in the next class?
Next class.
Next
sir.
class.
Okay then. But this is a very important aspect for those of you, who would be going in for a placement or even thinking of startups at a later stage. I think it's a very important aspect which you need to concentrate. Okay. Yeah. The new product development as well as product life cycles are equally important. Any questions? Any questions for me, please?
Sir, I just wanted to ask about Ambassador, sir.
Yeah.
Like, was it
Yeah.
the company's problem, sir, or like was Ambassador not holding relevance in the market anymore?
As we have seen, there were no changes in the design itself. Okay, technically, it has
Like,
not.
were there any new entrants in the market, sir? Like, apart from Ambassador, were we having new cars?
Several of them.
Okay.
As I was mentioning to you, there were only two vehicles, two models available, or two organizations, automobile companies available in India at one point of time. One was
Nissan
Fiat
and Hindustan. Okay, Fiat and Hindustan.
Fiat. Fiat is known as Premier later. So that and the Hindustan Motors. Those were the only two vehicles running for almost 3 decades on their own. Later, Fiat died down because it had no servicing network. Okay, though the product was good, it was a small family-sized car, and Ambassador was mostly an official car. Okay, but Fiat could not stay in the market because it had no own service network. So people, owners of the Fiat car had to depend on private garages. Even today, the situation is the same with Fiat. That's the reason why it is not able to sustain in Indian market. About 3 or 4 years back, Fiat had come to an agreement, an MOU with Tata Motors. So Tatas are now servicing all Fiat vehicles. So Fiat, even today, doesn't have its own service network. Okay? So that had been a problem. So today, there is you know the number of vehicles and companies available in the country.
Yes.
Plethora of them.
Yes.
In fact, a buyer is confused which vehicle to go buy. And the pricing is so competitive, features are so competitive, and the performance had been much, much better than what it was even earlier. And they are of different sizes, different shapes, different styling to your choice. They range from as good as 1.5 lakh, 2 lakhs to, the nano car costs you about 2.2 lakhs, I suppose, today, to as high as probably 1 crore of rupees. Okay.
Yes.
So that's the sort of a spread that you have today. Earlier we had only two. And I only remember from Mark 2, it has become Mark 4, Ambassador. I do not know what happened to Mark 3. That was the version change. Okay.
Okay. Sir, and about Mahindra Reva, no? Sir, Reva was manufactured by Mahindra company.
Yeah, Reva, I'm not too sure which company took over this company, but Reva was a company which was established in, electric, which was in Bangalore. Okay, which was started in Bangalore.
Okay.
And these days, somebody, I understand, other company has taken over, most probably Mahindra, Reva.
Sir, was Reva...
They are continuing.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Say it again.
So did Reva enter the market at the wrong time? Or was it a product failure?
It wasn't a product failure. It was an innovative product with electric. It's an electric vehicle, first of its kind in the country. But it was very expensive. It was not affordable. Okay. For a two-seater, who would pay as good as what you spend for a four-wheeler, four-seater? A family car, you are getting for the same price. And fuel was that time probably about 25-30 rupees a liter.
Okay.
So that was the situation. There are several things that are changing. Today, petrol is costing about 105 or a little more. Okay. And diesel is as good as what petrol is today. At one time, diesel was much, much cheaper. Most of them prefer to have a diesel car. But today, there's no difference. It only depends on how much you use the vehicle, the maintenance costs that are involved. That's it. Reva was good even that time, but the promises that the entrepreneur expected from the government were not met. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Yes. Thank you, sir.
Anything more?
Nothing, sir.
Yeah. Thank you. We'll meet in the next class.